One big question in the U.S. government: what's worse, overweight or overreach? And from what we're seeing, President Obama's 20,000-page health care law could stand to lose just a few pounds. More and more over the last 6 years, the Obama administration is becoming increasingly involved in what Americans put on their dinner plates and in their cereal bowls and ultimately in their mouths. Everything from requiring school children to be served fruit to eliminating trans fats in donuts. But the new Republican Congress is already laying the groundwork to push back in 2015. As the opening bell sounds for the 114th Congress, don't be surprised to see GOP lawmakers take on school nutrition. The $1.1 trillion omnibus included some telltale indicators, provisions that would allow states more wiggle room to exempt schools from the Department of Agriculture's whole grain standards. In order to do that, these schools would have to prove hardships, and then they could do away with sodium restrictions. Several GOP lawmakers are already starting work to reauthorize the law governing school nutrition programs. Several congressmen have openly criticized the 2010 Healthy Hunger-Free Kids Act. It's a bipartisan law that included many reforms that are now sparking complaints among school administrators and teachers alike. They argue the rules are too prescriptive and too costly. While the committees still haven't released any plans, interest groups say the legislative action could start in under 3 months' time. And when you look at the fine print, the giant spending bill proves lawmakers have big plans to change the dietary guidelines. That's the federal government's list of suggestions to what Americans eat and what they should eat. It usually comes out every 5 years, but the next report is expected to come out before the next school year. After the food industry started getting nervous about new regulations, lawmakers answered by inserting specific language into the omnibus bill, instructing the Secretary of Health and Human Services to steer the 2015 Dietary Guidelines Advisory Committee away from its current focus on food sustainability issues. Not just expiration dates and food shelf life, but big picture issues like sustainable agriculture and farm-to-table food distribution. In the new year, the White House will also have to find a new way to defend itself from labeling advocates. Many critics say Obama's leadership hasn't done enough to inform the public about what it is consuming. For starters, the Food and Drug Administration can expect to feel the heat on its sweeping rule to require calorie labeling on menus at chain restaurants, grocery stores, and movie theaters nationwide. The grocery and convenience stores industries are especially upset that they were included in the rule, buried inside a provision of the Affordable Care Act, otherwise known as Obamacare. The FDA decided to go big with its final rule, also requiring calorie counts for, get this, alcoholic beverages, a move that many people didn't see coming. But that's not the only labeling issue the FDA could have to defend next year. On a related front, the agency also can expect continued pushback from the food industry on its Nutrition Facts Panel proposal, which would require manufacturers to list separately added sugars. Interest groups have been taking their concerns to Capitol Hill for months, complaining about bureaucratic overreach. They don't want to list all the added sugars, and they're trying to influence politicians to vote in their favor. Another ingredient for the FDA later this year, not just sugar, but salt. The agency is working on a policy to further reduce sodium in the food supply, but many people are in the dark about the status of that whole project. The food industry would almost certainly attack any new sodium laws right away, so the proposal is sitting on the agency's back burner for now. And back on to the labeling front, Congress can be expected to debate the need for requiring manufacturers to say when their foods contain genetically modified ingredients. After Vermont passed a new GMO labeling law, Kansas Congressman Mike Pompeo says he plans to reintroduce a counter bill that would prevent states from setting their own standards. Instead, Pompeo would give the authority to label GMOs back to the FDA, stripping the states of their own right to demand GMO labels. Until this point, labeling GMOs hasn't exactly been a priority for the FDA, but in 2015, the new Congress could certainly force their hand.